At 2:13 in the morning, my phone began vibrating itself across the bedside table like it had somewhere urgent to be. I caught it before it hit the floor and found a hotel app alert glowing on the screen. Emergency contact notification. The name beneath it was Julian Cross. I had met Julian Cross once, 12 hours earlier, while the front desk printer ate his retreat schedule. He was the tall man in the navy sweater who had thanked the clerk as if she had done him a personal favor by losing his paperwork. Dark blonde hair, silver at the temples, gray-blue eyes that made careful eye contact and then looked away before it became anything else. He had not asked for my number. I had not offered it. Yet the app was informing me that he had slipped near the service path, that lodge staff were responding, and that I was listed as the person to call. I stared at the screen until it buzzed again. The message included a location pin behind the main lodge. My first thought was that hotel software had finally achieved the human capacity for making a mess and assigning it to the nearest available stranger. My second was that a man was outside in a snowstorm. I pulled on jeans, my faded forest green work shirt over the thermal I had slept in, and my boots without bothering to lace them properly. My silver repair kit sat beside the door where I had dropped it on arrival. I left it there for exactly 2 seconds before picking it up. That was how people like me got trapped. We saw something broken and reached for the tools before asking whether anyone had invited us into the problem. Snow slapped hard against my face the moment I stepped outside. Pineglass Lodge had looked almost elegant at dinner, all dark timber and big windows facing the mountains. At 2 in the morning, it looked like a place people vanished from in expensive coats. A groundskeeper held a flashlight near the service path. Julian stood beside him, one hand braced against a railing, snow dampening the shoulders of his sweater. He was upright, pale but upright. When he saw me, his posture changed in a way I felt more than understood. Not relief exactly. Relief would have been simpler. "You came," he said. "I got an emergency alert from an app that apparently thinks we share a mortgage." The groundskeeper gave a tired snort. Julian almost smiled. "I'm sorry," he said. "I don't know why it listed you." "Good. Because I was worried you had made a very intense first impression." His phone lay in a shallow gutter of snowmelt beside the path. The case had come off. Water shone along one cracked corner. Julian looked down at it, and the color left his face. "There is something on that phone that can destroy me by sunrise," he said. That changed the air between us. The groundskeeper helped Julian back toward the lodge. I crouched in the snow and lifted the phone by its edges. It was cold, wet, and still powered on. The screen flashed once under my thumb, then went black. I knew that kind of silence. It did not always mean a device was dead. Sometimes it meant it was holding its breath. Inside, the night manager explained the road had closed 40 minutes earlier. A late spring storm had turned the mountain pass into a sheet of ice, and the county would not reopen it before daylight at the earliest. A medic checked Julian's wrist, declared it sprained rather than broken, and wrapped it in a plain white bandage. Julian accepted the news without complaint. He sat in the lobby beneath a brass reading lamp, damp boots leaving dark marks on the stone floor. The composed man from check-in was still there, technically. He had simply been pulled tighter around the edges. The repair kit rested against my shin. He kept looking at it. I knew that look too. "I own a repair shop," I said before he could ask. "That does not make me an on-call mountain rescue technician." "I understand." His voice was low and steady. "I would pay you for an assessment." There it was. The offer that turned a person into a service counter. I folded my arms. "What's on it?" His jaw shifted once. "A recording." "Of what?" "A conversation from a mediation I handled last year." He gave me the answer like each word had been approved by a committee. "I'm a divorce mediator," he added. "A former client claims I deleted part of the record to protect myself. He has threatened to send an edited copy to the state ethics board. And the real recording is on this phone." It was. I had copied it there before I came up here. "Why?" Julian looked toward the snow-covered windows. "Because I did not trust the person making the threat." That was not an answer. It was the framed version of one. I set the phone carefully on the lobby table between us. I can assess the damage. I'm not recovering private evidence for someone who gives me the outline and calls it informed consent. For the first time, his attention settled fully on me. It was not offended. It was almost startled. "You're right," he said. Most people argued at that point. They reminded me of urgency, money, inconvenience, their own distress. Julian only put his uninjured hand flat on the table. "I can't tell you the confidential details of the mediation," he said. "But I can tell you this. The recording matters because it shows that I refuse to alter a parenting agreement. The client who is threatening me wanted me to pressure the other parent into accepting terms she had rejected. I refused." He thinks an edited clip can make it sound as though I acted improperly. Does he know the original exists? I believe he suspects. That was better. Not complete, but better. "Then, nobody touches this until I know whether it can be stabilized," I said. "No passwords spoken out loud in the lobby. No uploading it to some cloud account. And if I recover anything, it goes to whoever is legally authorized to receive it. Not to me, not to you, not to the guy sending threats." Julian nodded once. Agreed. The night manager returned with the kind of smile people wore when they were about to deliver bad news in a cardigan. A plumbing leak had closed half the guest wing. The storm had trapped several drivers who had been given rooms meant for retreat guests. The lodge had one overflow cabin left. "One bedroom," she said apologetically, "and a sleeper sofa." I looked at Julian, he looked at me. "I can sleep in the lobby," I said. "You paid for a room," Julian said. "So did you. I'll take the sofa." He said it immediately, without glancing toward the manager, as if the arrangement had no cost to him at all. It should not have mattered. It was a practical offer from a practical stranger. Still, something in me eased by half an inch. The cabin sat behind the lodge, tucked among pines bent under new snow. It had one narrow bedroom, a small kitchen, a wood stove, and internet that worked only when the weather decided it had earned a break. Julian carried my kit despite the bandage on his wrist until I took it from him. "You have one functional hand," I said. "I was compensating for dragging you into this." "You didn't drag me, your hotel app did." That small smile appeared again. It made him look less formal and therefore more dangerous. I took the bedroom because he insisted and because I was too tired to turn decency into a competition. 10 minutes later, I came back out in socks and found him making a bed from the sofa cushions with the careful efficiency of a man who did not expect comfort from a room. The observation lodged where I did not want it. I set up my portable recovery recorder at the kitchen table instead. It was a squat little thing with a screen, adapters, and a pair of old wired earbuds I kept because wireless ones were good for calls and terrible for listening closely. I dried the phone, disconnected the battery, and began the slow work of seeing what the water had left intact. Julian hovered near the counter. "You can sit," I told him. "I'm trying not to make you feel watched. You are failing with admirable restraint." He sat across from me. After 20 minutes, the recorder found a damaged audio fragment. Not enough to play through the cabin speakers without broadcasting private material to the entire room. I held up the earbuds. "One each," I said. "You listen for names or dates." I listened for distortion. Julian took one. His fingers brushed mine as he did, brief and careful. He placed the earbud in his left ear. I put the other in my right. The wires stretched between us over the table. We leaned toward the recorder until our shoulders nearly touched. His sleeve was warm against the back of my hand. Through the static came a man's voice, broken into pieces by water damage. "You said you could make her understand." Then Julian's voice, quieter but clear enough to recognize. "No, I said I could explain the options. I will not pressure her." A crackle swallowed several seconds. The other voice returned, sharp with anger. "You fix this agreement, or I make sure everyone hears what kind of mediator you are." Julian went still beside me. I turned off the playback. "That was him?" I asked. "Yes." "Callum Reese?" His eyes moved to mine. I didn't say his name. "You did earlier, in the lobby. You said former client, and then you stopped yourself after the first syllable." His expression did something complicated. Respect, maybe. Concern, definitely. You notice a great deal, he said. It's cheaper than therapy and less likely to send me an invoice. His mouth softened, but he did not laugh. My phone vibrated against the table. Unknown number. I expected a spam call. Instead, there was an audio attachment and a single line of text. Give him the phone before morning. I pressed play before Julian could stop me. A distorted male voice came through my speaker, chopped thin and ugly by compression. Julian's name was audible, so was mine. Owen. Julian reached for the phone, then stopped short of touching it. The message had not gone to him. It had come to me. Outside, snow pressed white against the cabin windows. The single wire between our earbuds lay across the table, suddenly less like a tool than a line somebody had decided to pull tight. I looked from the message to Julian. Did you give anyone my number? No. His answer came too quickly, then steadied. The lodge has it through the app. If Callum contacted someone here or accessed information through the retreat registration, that is a lot of guesses for 4:30 in the morning. I know. He did know. That was the irritating part. Julian did not flinch from the ugliness of it, and he did not try to take my phone from my hand. He sat very still with one earbud in his ear and the other wire draped across the table toward me, like he understood that touching either thing without permission would make it worse. I turned my phone face down. New rules, I said. Julian nodded once. No cloud upload. No sending anything to your office, your colleague, your cousin who knows a guy, or whoever you usually trust when your life catches fire. We recover what we can locally. We document every step. If we get enough to prove what this is, it goes straight to an authorized evidence custodian. Not you, not me, not the lodge Wi-Fi. I agree. And neither of us contacts Callum. His jaw tightened, agreed. If he calls, we save it. If he texts, we save it. If somebody claiming to be hotel staff asks for the phone, they get nothing without the manager standing in front of us with photo ID and a very convincing childhood story. That earned me the faintest curve of his mouth. You have a very specific threshold for trust, he said. I run a repair shop. People will hand you a dead phone, then get offended when you ask if they dropped it in a lake or threw it at an ex. I imagine you hear a great deal you were not meant to hear. Enough to know that a damaged device is usually the least complicated part of the problem. His expression changed at that, not pity. Julian seemed too careful with other people to mistake observation for pity. It was recognition which was somehow more dangerous. The storm kept us inside until morning. Then morning became a gray, snow-packed version of itself. The road remained closed. The lodge generator coughed through breakfast service. And a staff member left a tray outside the cabin with coffee that tasted like wet cardboard and 2 hard-boiled eggs rolling around in a paper bowl. Julian watched me take one swallow of the coffee. You look offended, he said. I repair water damage for a living. I have standards. You packed a coffee press? I packed a life raft. He found the press in my tote bag, along with beans I had ground the night before leaving Denver. His sprained wrist made pouring awkward, so I took over before he could pretend it was fine. We moved around the narrow kitchen carefully, both of us acting as if the distance between the counter and the stove was not small enough to make every turn feel negotiated. The wood stove was less cooperative. It smoked when I opened the door and refused to catch until Julian crouched beside it, sleeves pushed to his forearms, arranging kindling with quiet concentration. You mediate divorces, I said. Is this included in the licensing exam? My grandfather heated his house this way. That answers nothing. It answers that I know how to build a fire. It answers that you were raised by a man who believed indoor plumbing was a character flaw. Julian laughed then. Properly. It was low and brief, but it changed his whole face. The formal lines around his mouth eased. The silver at his temples stopped making him look severe and started making him look unfairly good in a cabin at 8 in the morning. I focused on the recorder. The recovery took patience more than genius. I made 2 forensic copies of the phone storage, logged the device condition, and ran a scan for audio fragments that had survived in pieces. Julian read the list I made without interrupting. When I asked him for a date range, he gave it. When I asked whether there were other recordings connected to Callum, he hesitated. Julian. I know. He set his coffee down. There were intake notes. No recordings beyond the session in question. Were there threats before that session? His gray-blue eyes went to the window. Not in a form I could prove. That is not what I asked. No, he said quietly. There were comments. About ruining people who embarrassed him. About making his former wife regret being difficult. The cabin felt smaller after that. Did you report them? I documented them. I advised both parties to have counsel present. Then, Callum requested a private follow-up call before he signed the agreement. And you recorded it. I told him I was recording it. He consented. He believed he could talk his way out of anything. That confidence has really served him. Julian's mouth did not move. It has served him often enough. By late afternoon, the recorder began finding cleaner sections. We returned to the kitchen table with the shared earbuds. This time, Julian sat close enough that our shoulders touched before either of us noticed, or before either of us admitted it. The wire ran from the recorder to us black and ordinary. Every few minutes I paused playback to mark a timestamp. Julian listened with his head bent. His attention so complete it made me aware of my own breathing. Callum's voice came through in fragments at first. You tell her the schedule is unreasonable. Julian replied, controlled but firm. I will explain the schedule to both parents. I will not tell her what to agree to. A burst of static. Then Callum again. She is scared of conflict. Use that. No. You want to keep doing this work? You make the agreement happen. The next section was nearly clear. And if I do not? Julian asked. Callum gave a short laugh. Then I send everyone the part where you told me her lawyer was making this worse. I can make it sound like you were coaching me. I said her lawyer was escalating the conversation. That is not the same thing. People hear what I give them. Julian shut off the recorder. Neither of us spoke for a while. That is enough to establish the threat, I said eventually. Maybe enough to show the clip he sent was manipulated. We need the complete file or more of the surrounding conversation. Julian nodded, but he was staring at the wire between us. You were right, he said. I try not to make a habit of it. It gets exhausting. No. About the problem being more complicated than the phone. I did not know what to say to that, so I opened another scan window. My laptop chimed with a retreat notification. The lodge's weak internet had revived just enough to remind everyone there was supposed to be a writer's critique call that evening. I had forgotten I had signed up. You write? Julian asked. Badly, in private, which is the only safe way to do it. His gaze moved to the document open behind my recovery logs. I had left it there after failing to write more than 3 paragraphs the first night. The title was still embarrassingly plain. Things people bring me after they stop working. You read it, I said. His expression gave him away before he answered. Only what was visible. Which was how much? A page. Julian, a page and a half. I should have been annoyed. I was annoyed. But he looked almost embarrassed, which did not suit him at all. The part about messages, he said. You wrote that people think you restore what they said, but mostly you restore the chance to decide whether they meant it. Heat climbed up my neck. That was a draft. It was the first honest thing you have said about yourself since we met. I stared at him. That is wildly rude, I said. Yes, and possibly true, which is worse. It was not meant to be cruel. I know, that was the problem. He had not read my words like someone hunting for a weakness. He had read them as if they mattered. As if the man behind the toolkit had taken up space in his mind when there was no emergency requiring it. The critique call opened at 9. I almost ignored it, but the cabin was beginning to feel too full of recovered threats and unfinished sentences. I carried my laptop to the small bedroom, telling Julian I would be 20 minutes. The first person to appear on screen was Miles Hart, a novelist with expensive glasses and the kind of easy smile that probably got him upgraded on flights. Owen, he said when my video connected. There you are. I thought you'd vanished into the snow. Tempting, but I forgot to pack a sled. He laughed. Did you come up with someone? The lodge desk said, you and Julian got moved to an overflow cabin. I glanced toward the open bedroom door. Julian sat at the table, pretending to study the recovery logs. "We were assigned the same cabin," I said. Miles raised his eyebrows. "That sounds considerably more interesting than my room with a broken radiator. It is mostly extension cords and bad coffee. Still, join me tomorrow for a walk, if the road opens. I want to hear about the essay. You have a good voice on the page." Before I could answer, Julian spoke from the other room. "Owen may be occupied tomorrow." The silence on the call was small but very clear. I turned in my chair. "May I?" Julian looked at me. Color had risen along the top of his cheekbones, subtle but unmistakable. "No," he said, "you may not. I should not have said that." Miles, who had the instincts of a man paid to make fictional people uncomfortable, smiled into his camera. "I will take that as a maybe. Good night, Owen." When the call ended, I closed the laptop and walked back to the table. Julian had removed his glasses and was rubbing the bridge of his nose with his good hand. "You cannot schedule me without consulting my assistant," I said. "I know. Do I have an assistant?" "I doubt it. Then you have made a procedural error." His hand dropped. I was jealous. The bluntness of it took the joke out of me. He looked almost angry with himself. "That does not give me any right to speak for you. It was inappropriate." I leaned against the counter, trying to remember how breathing worked when a beautiful, tightly controlled man admitted jealousy, like it was evidence against him. "You could have just said you wanted me to stay," I said. Julian met my eyes. "I did not think I was allowed to want that." The recorder made a soft chime. Another fragment had finished processing. I looked away first. "Let us see what your phone wants," I said. The new segment included a metadata record, an automatic log created minutes before the recording itself. I enlarged it, then stopped. There was an incoming message on Julian's phone from 2 days earlier. The notification had been preserved in a system cache. Callum Reese. I did not need the whole message. The preview showed enough. "Withdraw from Pineglass, or I send the clip." I turned slowly toward Julian. "You knew he was coming after you before the storm." His face went blank in the way it had when he was frightened. "Owen, when did you get this?" "Thursday night. We arrived Friday. I thought I could handle it." "You let me stand in this cabin with your phone in my hands, while somebody was already threatening you. I did not know he would involve you, but you knew he might involve anyone near you." Julian stood. "I was trying to keep you out of it." There it was. The sentence people used when they had decided my risk was theirs to measure. I took the earbud from my ear. The quiet that followed felt harsher than the static had. "You did not keep me out of it," I said. "You kept me uninformed. I am sorry. You should be. You asked for my help, but you did not give me enough truth to decide whether I wanted to give it. I was afraid Callum would use you because of me. He already is." I gathered the recorder, the cables, and the silver toolkit. My hands were steady because they had learned to be steady when people needed something. "You do not get to make me useful and call it protection." I set the recovery kit on the table between us. "The process is there. The evidence rules are there. You know how to reach the investigator when we have something verified." "Owen, please." I looked at him then. Not at the phone, not at the threat. At the man who had laughed by the stove, read my bad essay, and still believed care meant carrying every dangerous thing alone. "I will not be useful on terms someone else writes," I said. Then I walked into the bedroom and closed the door before he could turn that sentence into another problem for me to solve. Someone knocked on the cabin door 20 minutes later. Not the polite tap the lodge staff used when they brought wood. This was 3 firm knocks, a pause, then 2 more. I sat up on the edge of the bed. The room was cold except for the small pocket of warmth trapped beneath the quilt. On the other side of the door, I heard Julian move from the sleeper sofa. A man's voice called, "Pineglass Maintenance. We need to collect Mr. Cross's phone for the incident report." Julian said nothing, neither did I. The lodge had texted before every maintenance visit since the plumbing problem sent us to this cabin. They also knew Julian's wrist was sprained, which made an incident report a strange thing to suddenly need at dawn. I opened the bedroom door without turning on the overhead light. Julian stood near the kitchen table, pale in the gray window light. His damaged phone lay beside my recorder. "Don't answer it," I said. The man knocked again. "Mr. Park? We were told you have the device." My stomach went hard. Julian looked at me, not the door. "What do you want to do?" It was a simple question. It should not have mattered as much as it did. I picked up my phone and called the lodge's front desk. The night manager answered on the first ring, sounding confused and very awake once I told her what was happening. No one had been sent to our cabin. Security was at the main lodge. The county deputy stationed at the closed gate was on his way up. I put the chain across the door anyway. Outside, the visitor's boots shifted on the porch. "Mr. Park, this is not your concern." "You came to the wrong cabin then," I said. There was a long silence. Then the steps moved away through the snow. Julian did not reach for the phone. He did not tell me to hand it over, hide it, or let him take charge because the threat had begun with him. He sank into one of the kitchen chairs and pressed his good hand over his mouth. "Callum sent someone," he said, "or came himself. Same difference until the deputy identifies him." "No, it is not the same difference." Julian lowered his hand. "You deserve to know exactly what you are dealing with." He took a breath, then spoke carefully, without the polished pauses he used when he was deciding how much truth another person could bear. Callum had come to mediation with a plan already made. He wanted Julian to pressure his former wife into accepting a parenting schedule that would let Callum move their children across state lines whenever his work required it. When Julian refused, Callum began recording pieces of their sessions and suggesting he could make Julian sound biased. The file on the phone was Julian's protected contemporaneous recording, made after Callum had threatened the children's mother in the lodge parking lot following a session. "I should have reported him then," Julian said. "Instead, I kept trying to resolve it correctly, quietly. I thought if I gave him no reaction, he would stop. And Thursday, he sent the threat. I knew I should cancel this retreat. I also knew the panel would put me in front of people who could help if he filed a complaint." His gaze stayed on the table. I told myself I was being practical. The truth is that I did not want to let him take another thing from me. That at least sounded human. Not good, not excusable, human. Julian unlocked his laptop and turned it toward me. An email address sat at the top of a draft message. "Marion Bell is the state ethics investigator assigned to the initial complaint. I spoke with her yesterday after your first recovery test. She knows the original device exists. She knows you are not an employee of mine and that any technical work you do is voluntary. Her direct number is here. You can call her yourself, or you can walk away. Either choice is yours." I studied the screen, then I studied him. "You called her yesterday? After you told me evidence needed an authorized recipient." "I should have told you immediately." His voice roughened. "I am telling you now because I do not get to use your silence as part of my plan." The deputy arrived with lodge security before I answered. Through the peephole, I recognized the security manager and a broad-shouldered woman in a tan county jacket. They confirmed the man had been stopped on the service road in a borrowed maintenance vest. He had no lodge credentials. He was not Callum, but he had Callum's business card in his wallet and a story that changed twice in 5 minutes. The deputy took our statements separately. When she asked whether I wanted to release the phone to her, I said no. I wanted to speak with the investigator first and preserve the recovery chain correctly. Julian nodded once. No argument, no grateful look that turned my decision into a favor he could collect later. Marion Bell answered her direct line from Denver. Her voice was brisk, clear, and exactly what I needed. She explained the encrypted upload process, the hash verification, and the limited access log. The deputy documented the attempted collection. Lodge security gave us a private connection through the office satellite link. By late morning, Julian and I were back at the kitchen table. The shared earbuds lay between us. I almost left them there. Then I plugged them into the recorder and handed one to Julian. "This is work," I said. "I understand." We listened to the recovered file in sections, close enough that the cable brushed across the back of my hand. Callum's voice came through first, flatter than the distorted clip he had sent me. Then Julian's, controlled but firm. "You are asking me to alter the agreement after both parents have declined it. I am asking you to do your job. My job is not to make a false record sound reasonable." The next sound was a chair scraping concrete. Callum said something about making Julian regret choosing one parent over the other. Julian told him the conversation was over and that he would document the threat. The file did not make Julian heroic. It made him tired, scared, and correct. When the verification finished, I checked the file hash twice. Then I made myself check it a third time. Julian waited without speaking. "It is clean," I said. The original audio and the device metadata match. His eyes closed briefly. We submitted the package through Marion's secure portal. Julian signed his statement. I signed mine as the independent recovery technician. Then the upload bar reached the end and vanished. No applause, no dramatic rescue. Just a confirmation number and a quiet kitchen with snow packed high against the windows. Julian's retreat panel was scheduled for that afternoon. I found him standing by the cabin window, phone in hand. "I withdrew," he said. "Because of Callum?" "Because I will not put you in a room full of people who may ask questions about a threat you never volunteered to carry." He looked over his shoulder. "And because I need to cooperate with the investigation without turning this into a performance." It was not the choice I would have made for him. That was the point. He had made it for himself, and he had not made me the reason he could avoid being seen. After the deputy left, I packed my toolkit slowly. There was no urgent reason to do it. My hands just needed somewhere to go. Julian came to the other side of the table and stopped there. "I am sorry," he said, "not because this became inconvenient. Not because Callum found the cabin. I treated your skill as permission to decide what you could handle. I made you part of my life when I needed help, then withheld the truth that would have let you choose whether you wanted any part of it." I kept winding a cable around my fingers. "People call me when their photos are gone, or their messages are gone, or they dropped a phone in a sink," I said. "They are grateful while I am useful. Then the screen lights up and they go back to their lives. I am tired of being the man who gets invited in through a broken door." Julian's face changed, quietly. Like he had been given something fragile and knew better than to rush toward it. "I do not want to know you only when something is broken," he said. "I want your bad coffee, your impossible standards for charging cables, the way you make a joke when you are trying not to ask for anything. I want the life you have when nobody needs rescuing." My throat hurt in a way I did not enjoy. He looked at my hands. "May I touch you?" The question sat between us, open and unarmed. I put the cable down. "Yes," I said. Julian stepped closer. His fingers touched mine first, careful and warm. When I turned my hand over and held on, he looked at me as if he was still waiting for permission. So I closed the distance myself. The kiss was gentle. It tasted faintly of coffee and cold air. Julian did not deepen it until I did, and even then it was only a few quiet seconds before I rested my forehead against his. "You are very serious for a man who lost a fight with a hotel app," I said. His laugh brushed my mouth. "I have had a difficult weekend. You have no idea." That evening, after Marion confirmed receipt of the evidence and the road crew announced the lower pass would open by morning, I set the recorder on the table one last time. Julian watched me connect the earbuds. "Another file?" he asked. "No." I handed him one side. "This one stays with us." He put it in his ear. I pressed record. The tiny red light came on. For once, I did not have to recover the right words from damage. "I want you when nothing is broken," I said. Julian's eyes went bright, but he did not look away. "I want to be there when nothing is broken," he said. "And when it is, I will ask before I assume you are mine to call." 3 weeks later, Julian came into my shop 10 minutes after closing with a paper bag of Thai food and no phone in his hands. I looked through the glass door at him, standing beneath the faded awning, snowmelt dripping from the curb outside. He wore his navy sweater, no coat, and the expression of a man prepared to wait as long as I needed. I turned the sign to closed, locked the repair counter behind me, and opened the door. "What is broken?" I asked. Julian lifted the takeout bag. "Nothing. I thought we could have dinner." I stepped aside to let him in. For the first time, it did not feel like someone